Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange? Come with us and you will see this, our episode about one of the many amazing animators on Nightmare Before Christmas. This specific person also animated on many other exemplary stop-motion films and is still animating today. But who's this cult classic animator? Let's find out. Before we start, don't forget to check out our Patreon, our Discord, and of course, like and subscribe. Born in Flint, Michigan, Anthony Scott grew up with a love of art and animation, specifically stop-motion.
I was the oldest, and when I was a baby, she had my brother, so she was kind of busy with him, so she would give me crayons, and I'd be sitting in my high chair drawing on the high chair on paper. But I do remember developing my own cartoon characters. By the time I was 7, I was drawing little comic strips, and they were very simple. I loved Charlie Brown, Snoopy, those characters. So I created my own characters. But, you can only go so far with the stories and the drawings, and I wanted to learn how to make them come to life. So I went to the library, and I found a couple books. I actually have these books. I want to show you. This was a huge influence on me.
Oh, wow. Look at this little show and tell here.
So I basically created cutouts just like in the book. And I animated, set up a down shooter, cameras pointing down, and animated these little paper characters, very simple, just moving across the screen. So by the time I was 16, 17, I knew I wanted to work in animation or a film or something. Star Wars came out when I was 14. I was kind of the first Star Wars. And that was that changed everybody. They were all excited about special effects and spaceships and creatures. And King Kong, the remake of King Kong came out, I think a year before that. So I was really into King Kong as well.
These inspirations led Anthony to pursue a career in film. However, he wasn't sure exactly how to break into the business.
I took a year and went to a community college in Lansing, Michigan, took all their film classes. One of them was an animation class. That was it, like one quarter, one semester or whatever. But the plan was, ever since I was like 11, I was 14, something like that. I decided I was going to move to California, that I'd have to leave Michigan. I'd have to move to California and pursue my career in film business, Yeah, so I was 21, didn't know anybody. At one point, I decided to quit my jobs and just work just part-time. And I was living in an old school that was an art studio. And you weren't supposed to live there, but I was there for about a year. And I just wanted to focus on my art, just focus on film. And at the time, I was taking the Dick Smith makeup course because I was still thinking special effects makeup. And I was working for a temp agency, and they offered me a job at ILM as a janitor. I was there one evening, and this guy Cameron Noble, he was working there at the time. He was animating like a Dixie cup, moving it around, and he was using this system. It was like a videotape system to capture the frames. I said, "What are you doing?" I used to do this stuff, when I was a kid. And he says, "Oh, I'm doing some animation because they're starting a new Gumby project in Sausalito, which is a town, just a few miles south." And I said, "Oh yeah, I used to do this stuff when I was a kid. I have a whole tape. I have a whole reel of stuff." He says, "Oh yeah, I'll take a look at it." So I gave it to him. He looked at it. He gave it back a little bit later and said, "You should totally send that in. This is what they're looking for."
In 1988, Anthony got hired by Art Clokey for the Gumby Adventure Show, for which he animated many sequences.
Cut! Who is talking on my set?
No, not that Gumby. Other Gumby. You know the one I'm talking about. Come on.
Oh, Minga. Did you forget? Forget what? You're taking me on a picnic today.
For me, Gumby was like animation school. Gumby was set up where you had to shoot 8 seconds a day. You loaded your own camera. You'd go in, you'd have a storyboard, you'd look at it and go, okay, this is what they want. And you just shoot the animation, and it would be in the show. There was no direction really, other than the storyboard. We had to work pretty fast, and you got better as time went on. We all had to work without grabbers, and so we would compare our work and try to learn from each other.
It was here that Anthony met future coworkers, which would set him up for a long career in stop-motion animation.
So I was on that show for a year, and during that time I met Henry Selick. He was looking for some animators to work on an MTV spot. He knew somebody in the art department, and they referred him to me, Tim Hiddle, and Eric Layton. We worked, all three of us worked on this spot for MTV called Dollhouse. It was a very short 10-second deal. After that, I did a few cutout animations with him at Colossal Pictures in San Francisco. And then he had, they were going to revitalize the Pillsbury Doughboy and make him more energetic and get him off that table, you know, jumping around and dancing around and stuff like that. And that was a lot of fun. I thought at that point, like, okay, this is it. This is the peak of, you know, I'm working with the Pillsbury Doughboy here. Yeah, but feature films, I didn't even think that was possible because nobody was making a full feature film, stop motion feature film. So yeah, when I was contacted in 91 about Nightmare Before Christmas, after a little bit of back and forth, and I got the script finally, and I read it, and I was like, yeah, I'm in.
By the time Anthony joined the Nightmare Before Christmas production, many stages and puppets had already been built, and he was assigned to help animate the end of the "What's This?" sequence. At first, he worked on Jack, but found himself to be kinda rusty for the King of Halloween. So he moved on to the elves. Eventually, Anthony built up enough steam to ask for a very specific sequence.
I was privileged to animate the poor Jack sequence when Jack's in the graveyard after he's been shot down, and he's on the angel statue and singing with his Santa suit all ripped up. And when I read the script, actually, I really was drawn to that whole sequence because that's when Jack he realizes who he is and what his power, where his power is, and he knows who he is, and he basically turns. It's a big transition scene. So I love that when I read it, and I asked Henry if I could animate it, and I spent 6 months animating that every day. I'd go into the graveyard and animate Jack, and yeah, it's still one of my favorite things to watch that I've done.
And, you know, Tim Burton didn't visit very often, but he did come in once while I was working on a sequence, and he came in just to tell me how much he appreciated what I was doing and how much character I was giving to Jack. So, you know, I was blown away by that. You know, I'm working on my first feature film. Tim Burton's coming in, talking to me. You know, he rarely made any appearances on that film.
The Jack puppet presented a lot of challenges. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Jack doesn't have pupils. This forced animators to use his head position and body language more to make his emotions readable. Blinking also helped the puppet emote. Anthony found plenty of other challenges in animating Jack.
He had he's a really skinny puppet. Everybody knows his design. Very long arms. And his arms were outstretched a lot in that sequence, and those pieces of fabric were just hanging there. And not only that, he was on top of that angel statue. So I had my surface gauge attached to a C-stand arm that I would take in and out every frame. And I had to climb up on the set and animate him on top of that. Yeah, exactly that picture. The gauge is actually attached to a C-stand arm, and all those little pointers there. I probably was gauging his head, his hands, and then using smaller gauges out of wire to gauge the clothes.
What have I done? What have I done? Find a deep cave to hide in. In a million years they'll find me only dust and a plaque that reads, "Here lies poor old Jack."
You can't see it until they send it to the lab. You come back in the morning. Everyone ends up in dailies. They project.
Gosh.
Everyone's looking at it for the first time, and you Either it's a success or something goes wrong if the puppet breaks in the middle of a shot.
Goodbye.
It happened. Like the shoulder broke on the armature once, and they had to go in, and I took all these Polaroids, so I had some reference, and then I had, of course, the last couple of frames grabbed. But they went in, surgically fixed it, stitched them up, and I just kept going with the shot. So things like that would happen, and you can't tell in the film. You just keep going.
So I don't find it necessarily tedious. You have to put your head in a certain slow motion mode and just focus on that frame. It's a lot like reading a book. You start on page 1, move on to the next page, and just keep going till you get to the end. It's the same thing with stop motion. You just do the same thing from the beginning of the shot till the end. And then you watch it as it goes. You see this performance happen before your eyes. It's pretty magical for me.
And I, Jack, the Pumpkin King. That's right. I am the Pumpkin King. And I just can't wait until next Halloween, 'cause I've got some new ideas that will really make them scream, and by God, I'm really going to give it all my might!
After Nightmare, Anthony moved on to Bump in the Night, a TV series about the misadventures of toys in a 10-year-old's bedroom. After working on a short entitled Fun House Express, Anthony moved on to James and the Giant Peach.
James and the Giant Peach, the spider had some limitations with the legs. And I was testing it, and I had to tell Paul Berry and Tom Sanmon, who, Tom Sanmon's been in the business for years and years. He's a really great guy. Mm-hmm. But I had to say, Tom, this isn't working. And he had to go in and create extra joints for the legs just so they wouldn't get caught up. What was happening, they were breaking when I was making the character walk. So that came about in the testing phase.
Die if I have to go back to the way I was. They can't make me.
Nobody can make you do anything, James, if you do not let them. You are a brave boy. Now to sleep.
Yeah, the spider was a different thing. She had to be walking on a web, so you had to develop a walk that could work on a spider web. And she had little clamps on her feet. I didn't shoot reference for her, but we did shoot reference for like the Ladybug dancing with James. They hired dancers to dance to the actual music by Randy Newman and like little dance moves. And I just matched it. I just looked at frame by frame on VHS at the time. Now you just load it up in Dragon Frame and as a layer, and you can like see, frame by frame as you're shooting.
That sounds lovely, dear. I'm sure we all agree. But I prefer the sunshine. A little park right in the center of the town. Flowers everywhere, children all around me. I'd love it.
After a short stint with Pixar where he animated on A Bug's Life and Toy Story 2, Anthony moved on to animating on the Nickelodeon show with the best theme song, Kablam!
Hold on tight. Take a deep breath for a cartoon cramaganza.
Specifically animating on Life with Loopy. Shortly after, Anthony was reunited with Henry Selick on Monkey Bone, where he served as lead animator. Anthony followed this with a CG animator credit for Evolution, after which he had an opportunity to move from animator to supervisor.
There was a show called Phantom Investigators. It was for Warner Brothers. It was a kid's show. And it didn't get much airplay when it came out. But I was one of the animation directors on the show. So I had sort of a taste of it then. And I got a call one day from Mike Johnson. And he asked me if I was interested in working on Corpse Bride as the animation supervisor. I said, yeah.
Although credited as a supervisor on Corpse Bride, Anthony was able to animate a few shots. In 2006, Anthony worked as an animator on Gumby Dharma, a documentary about Art Clokey. He followed this with another supervisor role on Henry Selick's Coraline. Hey, by the way, if you're just chomping at the bit and simply drooling to get some more Henry Selick facts, you can just click here to our previous video. It's pretty good. Also, grab a napkin. It's getting all over your chin.
You're not my mother. My mother doesn't have buttons?
We started at the old Vinton building in Northwest Portland, and then we found the building that is now Leica. and started putting things together, and had to build stages, and I started early, even before we had puppets or anything. We had to figure out the scale. And when I started on Corpse Bride, a lot of the stuff had already been decided, like the scale of everything. But yeah, I learned a lot on Corpse Bride that I applied to Coraline. And Coraline, I was on that for 2.5 years. So I wasn't able to animate as much on Coraline. I was just so busy with animators and Henry and other department heads. It's a lot of fun to do breakdown meetings where you figure out how every shot's going to be done. You chime in with all the other leads from different departments. I enjoy all that stuff. I enjoy looking at the schedule and figuring out how are we going to shoot things, who's going to animate it, all that kind of stuff. But you do start, at least I do, I start to miss animating. And then you start wondering, can I animate still? Can I animate as good as the animators that I'm, on the show? Can I animate as well as they can now? And so I decided on the next project I was just going to animate. I didn't want to say about it. And it was more of a personal thing. I just wanted to see if I could do it, prove it to myself.
Anthony returned to animation for Paranorman, where he performed a few very impressive scenes of the main character and his friend.
You shouldn't let them get you down. They always do stuff like that to me. Why? Because I'm fat, and my allergies make my eyes leak, and I sweat when I walk too fast, and I have a lunchbox with a kitten on it. Ooh, and I have irritable bowel syndrome. I guess there's a whole bunch of stuff. Doesn't it bother you? Nah, you can't stop bullying. It's part of human nature. If you were bigger and more stupid, you'd probably be a bully too.
Paranorman was nominated for 9 Annie Awards and won 2 for Best Character Animation and Character Design. The film was also nominated by the Oscars and the Annie Awards for Best Animated Film, but lost both to Brave. So we'll have to wait a little bit before we do any Brave episodes. Anthony next moved on to The Little Prince as a lead animator.
Well, Little Prince is huge. It's a huge project in my life for a couple of reasons. That book was always around when I was a kid. I think my parents bought it, and I didn't understand the story, but I really loved the illustrations. These characters living on their own planets. I just was really drawn to it. Everything was paper scarf, paper costumes, the puppets, the sets, all had to look like paper. That was sort of the look. And I think it worked really well. We shot on 2, so the animation's a little rough, but I think it works really well with that style.
This film was based on a French book of the same name, and although it was a large success overseas, Paramount inexplicably dropped the film before it came to America. It instead appeared on Netflix in 2016, to positive reviews. Brian Tallarico writes, "The Little Prince takes the themes of its source material and expands on them to create a lovely, big-hearted tale of adventure, friendship, and imagination. Without a single pop song to be heard or bodily humor joke to be endured, The Little Prince doesn't talk down to its audience, treating them with the respect that so few American family films bother to do." Anthony continues to animate. He is currently working on the upcoming Wendy and Wild movie coming out next year. It's directed by Henry Selick and written by Key and Peele. Anthony is listed as a lead animator.
Do it again.
Anthony Scott is a wonderful example of an excellent stop-motion animator. From Gumby to Nightmare, from Paranorman to The Little Prince, Anthony has proven himself to have an incredible range in style and performance. We can't wait to see his upcoming work in Wendy and Wild and beyond. Way, way, way beyond. Thank you to these people for your generous support, and a special thank you to John David. You guys are really helping keep this channel afloat. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Don't forget to check out our Patreon and Discord, and click the thumbs up button below if you liked the video. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, subscribe and click the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.